All right, let's dive right in today. We're going to be talking about some pretty interesting news coming out of India. It's about Flipkart, big e-commerce player, and some big changes they're making.
Yeah, we've got this end tracker piece here. It's an exclusive. It says Flipkart shuts down ANS Commerce. ANS Commerce, they were doing all sorts of e-commerce stuff for brands, right? Like the whole shebang, setting up shops online, marketing, the
That
works.
pretty much everything, end-to-end solutions, as they say, handling marketplaces, warehousing, fulfillment. Big names, too, working with over 100 brands, like, Jack& and Jones, Vero Moda, even HUL and Lakme.
Oh, wow. Okay. So not small fry then. But things get interesting, when you look at the numbers. Article says their operating revenue was up almost 40% last year, which, that's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But then it also says their losses went up too, over 27% in the same period.
Hmm.
How does that even work? Growing and losing money at the same time.
Well, it's not that uncommon, actually, especially when you're scaling up quickly. And e-commerce, that's a really competitive space.
Yeah. So, ANS Commerce, their revenue's going up, but their expenses might be going up even faster. Think about it. They're offering all these services. Setting up online stores, managing logistics, fulfillment, that all adds up.
Yeah, so it's not just about how much you're bringing in, it's also about how much you're spending to get there.
Exactly. You got to keep a close eye on those margins, especially in a market like India, where everyone's fighting for a piece of the pie.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's what I don't get. Flipkart acquired ANS Commerce just 3 years ago, right? So were there internal things going on at Flipkart that we don't know about? Could be. Maybe integrating wasn't as smooth as they thought, or maybe they were hoping for some synergies that just didn't happen.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Integrating a company, it's never easy. You've got different cultures, different tech. Sometimes things just don't mesh the way you expect them to.
True, true. But wouldn't shutting down something that's actually making money seem kind of counterproductive? Especially if Flipkart's trying to, expand their business. What if it's more about, like, Flipkart changing their overall strategy? I mean, they're involved in so much now. Logistics, fintech, even healthcare. Maybe ANS Commerce, with just the straight e-commerce focus, started looking a little too, I don't know, limited.
That's an interesting point. It wouldn't be surprising at all. Big companies, they're always looking at their portfolio, trying to figure out what aligns best with their long-term goals.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe Flipkart sees more opportunity for growth and profit in those other areas, and they decided to just streamline the e-commerce side a bit.
So maybe ANS Commerce just didn't fit into the bigger picture anymore. Okay, but what happens to all those brands that were depending on them? Where do they go now? It's going to be a tough spot for those brands, huh? They were relying on ANS Commerce for so much.
Oh yeah, big time disruption for them, for sure. Now they've got to scramble and figure out what to do, and quick. They could try to find another company that does the same kind of stuff, another e-commerce enabler, but they'll have to really do their homework, make sure it's the right fit.
Right, and even then, it's not just going to be a simple switch, is it? I mean, changing providers is always a pain.
You get that right? There's going to be bumps along the way for sure. Moving data, redoing systems, probably got to retrain staff too. It's a real headache.
So maybe some brands might just say, forget it, we'll do it ourselves. Bring those e-commerce operations in-house. Is that realistic for most of them, though?
It's possible, but man, it's a huge decision. Building a whole team, getting the tech, the infrastructure, it's not something you just do on a whim. Got to be really careful about that.
Yeah, sounds like picking between two not-so-great options, huh? Either deal with switching providers or take on this massive project.
Well, there is another option, actually. Kind of obvious when you think about it. Flipkart themselves.
Oh, right. They want to be the one-stop shop for brands, don't they? Like, hey, you're already selling on our platform. Why not let us take care of everything else, too?
Exactly. And I bet for some brands, especially the bigger ones, who are already tight with Flipkart, it's going to be tempting. Flipkart's going to be like, look, we got the scale, the resources, we know what we're doing.
So this kind of brings us back to the whole question about the future of these e-commerce enablers. Is this the beginning of the end for them? Are the big guys just going to squeeze everyone else out?
It's hard to say for sure, but this Flipkart move, it could be a sign of what's to come. E-commerce, it's all about efficiency, being big, and Flipkart, Amazon, those guys, they've got that down. Makes it tough for the smaller players to keep up.
But wouldn't it be better for the brands if there were more choices? Doesn't this just give all the power to the big platforms and stifle new ideas?
Yeah, those are definitely legitimate concerns. Choice is important, for sure, but the flip side is managing a bunch of different partners, it can be a nightmare, especially as a brand's online business gets bigger It just creates more work and headaches.
So it's a trade-off then. Convenience and maybe saving some money by going with one big provider versus having more options and maybe more specialized services.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be up to each brand to decide what works best for them in the end.
This whole thing with ANS Commerce, it just seems so sudden, you know? They were growing, maybe not super fast, but still. What do you think made Flipkart decide to do this now?
That's the big mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
The article doesn't really say what Flipkart's thinking was, but we can speculate a little, right?
Of course, that's what we do best here on the Deep Dive, right?
Right. So what if this wasn't really about how well ANS Commerce was doing? What if it was more about Flipkart realizing, hey, we can do all this stuff ourselves. We've already got the people, the systems, and we can probably do even better.
So they basically outgrew ANS Commerce.
Maybe, yeah. Happens sometimes. A company buys a smaller one to learn something new, get some tech. Then once they've got it figured out, they just bring it all in-house.
Plus, you got to think about the bottom line, right? E-commerce, it's tough. Maybe shutting down a part of the business, even one that's making money, made sense for Flipkart, to save some cash and be more competitive.
That's a very good point. Even successful businesses have to make hard choices sometimes. It's all about adapting and staying ahead of the game.
Man, this really shows you how unpredictable the tech world can be, doesn't it? What looks like success one day can disappear just like that.
Absolutely. Things change so fast, you got to be ready to pivot. And this whole situation, I think it really highlights how important it is to have a backup plan. For brands, for anyone in e-commerce, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Speaking of, the article mentioned that ANS Commerce had raised a good chunk of money before Flipkart bought them. What happens to those investors now?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it really shows the risks that come with investing in startups. Sometimes investors have some protection built in, if the company gets shut down. But
They
sometimes,
almost lose everything.
yeah, that's unfortunately a possibility. It's a reminder that not every investment is going to be a winner. The startup world, it's full of highs and lows.
It's wild, right? But let's try to make this practical for everyone listening. We've talked about a lot. But what are the big takeaways? What can we all learn from this whole Flipkart ANS Commerce thing?
Yeah, good point. It's all about applying what we've learned, right? So for the brands out there, especially in India, I think this is a bit of a wake-up call. The e-commerce world is changing fast, got to be adaptable.
Adapt. Okay, what does that actually mean, though?
Well, first off, don't think that what worked before is going to keep working. It's time to take a good look at how you're doing e-commerce. Are you too reliant on one platform or one service provider? Maybe it's time to spread things out a bit, diversify, reduce that risk.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Exactly. And maybe think about bringing some things in-house. Handling some of those e-commerce operations yourself could give you more control in the long run. But got to weigh the costs, of course.
Makes sense. But what if you're not, directly involved in e-commerce? Is there something to learn here for everyone?
Oh, definitely. This story, it shows some basic things about business that apply everywhere.
Okay, like what?
Competition, consolidation, everyone wants to be bigger and more efficient.
So it's not just about e-commerce, it's about how business works in general.
Exactly. And if you're an entrepreneur or an investor, this is a reminder that even in a booming sector like tech in India, there's no sure thing. You got to be nimble, ready to adjust when things change.
And sometimes adjusting means making tough choices, like shutting down part of the business.
Right. And those choices, they have a ripple effect. It impacts everyone, the brands, the employees, investors, even the competition.
This whole thing really makes you think about the people involved, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There are real people whose lives are affected by these decisions. Like the ANS Commerce employees, they're facing uncertainty now. And the founders, they've put so much work into it, and now it's over.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that business isn't just about numbers and strategies. It's about people. We focus a lot on the money, the big picture, but it's important to remember the human side too.
Absolutely. And beyond this one story, it makes you wonder about the future of e-commerce in general,
Wow.
Are we headed towards a world where it's just a few giant companies? And if so, what does that mean for competition, for new ideas, for the choices that consumers and businesses have?
Big questions, for sure. We'll have to see how things evolve, but one thing's for sure, change is constant. And the winners are going to be those who can anticipate it and adapt.
Well, that's a great thought to leave everyone with, I think. Another insightful deep dive, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We unpacked the news, looked at what it means, hopefully got people thinking.
Yeah, hopefully everyone listening will keep exploring these topics, do their own research, form their own opinions. That's what it's all about. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another one.